Let's dive right into the routing of our application. We'll have many pages, so we need to be able to, well, route to them. Thankfully, it's one of the fundamental guides and concepts on Refine core documentation. So let's give it a read. Routing is essential for any CRUD application. Refine's headless architecture allows you to use any router solution without being locked into a specific router or framework, which is great. Refine also offers built-in router integration for the most popular frameworks such as React Router, Next.js, and Remix. These integrations make it easier to use Refine with these frameworks and offer some built-in benefits. Since Refine is router agnostic, as you'll notice, it's agnostic to many other choices that you make while developing this application, which is exactly why many developers love it. You are responsible for creating your own routes. So if you continue reading through it, you'll be able to see different integrations and then relationships within resources and routes. More on that later. This is going to be super useful once we start defining our database, schemas, and more. But for now, let's create some routes. So first things first, you can head over into the source and create another folder right within it, which you can call pages. Within pages, create our first page, which is going to be called dashboard.tsx. You can see WebStorm is asking me if we want to add it to Git immediately. In this case, we can say, sure, go ahead. And within it, you can simply run RAFCE. This stands for React Arrow Function Export Component, and it's a simple shortcut that I often like to use. If this didn't work for you, you might need to set up the plugin or an extension called Modern React Snippets, and then install it. You might need to reload your IDE or editor, and then it should work. This creates an empty page. Now, to be able to see it, we need to head back over to our home page, which is the app.tsx, and then we need to remove the previous welcome page routes and define the new route. So we can do that right here, where we have the routes. We have a single route right here, and instead of rendering the welcome page, we'll do something different. Let me show you. We'll say route, and we'll give it a path set to just / with an element set to dashboard. So this is the component that we want to render. It's a self-closing component. And if you save it, immediately you'll be able to see an empty piece of text that says dashboard. Now, alongside just setting up the route, I also want to quickly dive into the concept of the resources. In Refine, a resource is a central concept representing an entity, which ties together different aspects of your application. It typically refers to a data entity like products, blog posts, or orders. In our case, it's going to refer to different classes, subjects, students, and so on. Resource definitions allow you to manage your application in a structured way, abstracting complex operations into simpler actions through different providers and UI integrations. You simply need to define them here. And I think this little code example gives you a pretty good idea of what the resources do. In this case, the resource is product. And then you can list all the products. So this would be like a get all route. You can then show a specific product. This would be like get details. You can edit a product or you can create a product. It basically is an easier way to managing your application routes and tying those routes directly to resources within your database. So let's head back. And right here at the end of the refine component, we can also define the resources. I think if you hover over it, you should be able to see some information about it. And we'll define it as an array where the first resource will have a name of dashboard. It'll have a list of /, and then it'll have a meta where we can define a label set to home, as well as an icon set to, it's going to be a home icon, which you need to import over from Lucid icons. Let's make sure that it's coming from there. Right here, Lucid React, we have the home icon. And we can also put this into multiple lines, so it's a bit easier to see. And another route that we want to add right here is going to be a route that'll have an element equal to a layout. So we want to render some kind of a layout right here. coming from components, refine UI layout, and then within it, we want to close it and render something known as an outlet. This outlet is going to come from React Router, and it's a self-closing component. An outlet renders a matching child route of a parent route, or nothing if no child route matches. Basically, it's a special component used to render child routes inside a parent route. You can see some more information in the React Router API reference. But in this case, it'll simply render the sidebar, which Refine will pass as child automatically for us within other pages. And we will then pass this route that we created, the home route, within this route containing the outlet. And you can immediately see what happens. We get a sidebar where we can display other pages, we can change the theme, and we can mention the name or the icon of our project. Oh, and take a look at that. After changing the mode, you can more clearly see the theme that I chose with the following primary color. For you, this might look completely different. Now in this app, we can also remove this GitHub banner at the top because we don't need it. And we can similarly create routes for our subjects. That's going to be the first resource of our application. That'll look something like this. Like we'll have a table of different subjects and departments, descriptions, whether we have attended them or not. And that's what we want to display right there. So right here within our pages, create another folder called subjects. And within it, create a new file called list.tsx. So specifically within this one, we want to list all the subjects. So I'll simply run rafce, and then we'll import it right within our app.tsx as a new route that we want to add. So right here under resources, I'll add a new resource with a name of subjects, a list route pointing to /subjects. Then we'll have a create route pointing to /subjects, /create. And then we can also add some meta information, such as a label of subjects and an icon of something like maybe a book open icon coming from Lucid React, because we're talking about the subjects. Perfect. And now we can scroll down to the routes, and we can also add a new route group right below the current route. So it'll be a route that'll have a path of subjects. And within it, we can create a new route, which is going to be the index route of that route group. And it'll render the subjects list component. Of course, we have to properly create this within the subjects list page. So let's do that. I will rename this list to subjects list. And I will also create another page right here called create.tsx, within which I'll run rafce, and I will rename it over to subjects create, just to be consistent. Then if I get back to our app.tsx, we can now easily import the subjects list. There we go. And below it, I'll create another route. Let's just close this one properly first. This one won't be an index route. Rather, it'll be under the path of create, and it'll render the subjects, not list, but this time create. So now if you save it, believe it or not, immediately right here on the sidebar, you'll be able to see a subjects link, which is gonna navigate you over to the page where we can list all the subjects. It's pretty cool how Refine just makes all of this work immediately. It's fully mobile responsive by default with different theming options. But again, the fun starts when we actually set up something known as a data provider, because then we can combine our routes with the resources that I briefly touched on a bit before. So at this point, even though we're just starting, you should already have a pretty good idea of how we'll define the resources and the routes throughout the rest of this application. But don't worry, we'll do it many more times in the future. For now, since we have a nice starting point of our application, since we want to stick with proper programming habits, I want to teach you how to immediately initialize this repo with Git. So simply open up your terminal. I will call this one Frontend, and then I will open up a new terminal, which can be called just terminal. And within it, you can again cd into classroom frontend. Don't forget to do that. And run git init, git add dot, git commit -m, initial commit. Then head over to github.com/new, choose yourself as the owner, and enter the repository name, such as classroom frontend, and go ahead and simply create a new repo. Once you do that, we'll have a couple more commands we can follow, such as you can modify the branch to switch over to the main branch, then connect your local repo with the remote one over on GitHub, and then finally push the code over to that remote repo. Once you do that and reload, you'll be able to see the new code that we just created. Now that our code is on GitHub, later on, once we start implementing more intricate functionalities and code that's not just UI and can potentially break, it'll be much easier to just open up a PR and let CodeRabbit review that code for us, which we can then make a part of our natural workflow of continuing to develop the application in the future. That way, our code remains clean from one feature to another. With that in mind, let's move over to one of the main parts of our application, and that is dealing with data.